know that feeling when you're trying to wrap your head around some big new thing in the business world, a hot technology, maybe a market shift?
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly you're just drowning in articles, white papers, maybe those super enthusiastic sales demos.
Totally. Information overload.
It's like trying to learn a new language by reading the dictionary. Just, well, overwhelming.
Right. That feeling of being swamped is incredibly common, actually. And it really points to a core challenge for anyone trying to stay ahead. There's just so much information out there that figuring out what truly matters, the essential insights, that can feel impossible sometimes.
Well, that's exactly what we're tackling today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be diving in.
Think of us as your shortcut through that information jungle. We've waded through a pile of sources, articles, research, our own notes.
Lots of notes.
Yeah, to bring you the crucial knowledge you need without that feeling of overload. We aim to make you feel truly informed, maybe even surprise you a little.
And today we're focusing on a fascinating technology called AssetSync Pro. Our sources give us a pretty broad look at what it is and, maybe more importantly, what it aims to do for large companies, especially when they're implementing big new systems.
Right, and there seems to be a real emphasis on its smart capabilities, its intelligence.
Definitely. That's a key part of it.
Okay, let's get right to it then. For you listening, your goal in this deep dive is to walk away with a clear understanding of what AssetSync Pro is all about.
Yeah, like what's its core idea? What makes it different?
Exactly. And why might it be something you should pay attention to, regardless of your technical background? We're promising to cut through the complexity and really make sense of this innovation for you. Ready?
Absolutely. Let's start maybe by identifying the main problem that AssetSync Pro is really designed to solve.
Okay.
Our sources highlight this significant hurdle for large organizations.
Yeah.
Just the sheer difficulty in adopting truly groundbreaking new technologies.
Right.
And this often comes down to something they call the tyranny of the urgent.
Tyranny of the urgent. I like that phrase. It really captures that feeling of being constantly pulled in like a million directions. So what does that tyranny actually look like for a company day to day?
Well, it's that relentless pressure of just keeping the business running, the constant stream of immediate tasks, deadlines, problems that demand attention right now.
The fires you have to put out.
Exactly. And this leaves very little time, very little energy for the strategic thinking, for exploring innovations that could fundamentally change the game.
Right.
Companies are often so busy just keeping things afloat that they really struggle to look beyond making just small incremental improvements.
Right. It's like trying to upgrade your phone while you're constantly running out of battery. You're so focused on finding the next charger that you don't have time to research the newest model.
Precisely. That's a great analogy. And our sources point out that companies only seriously consider making these more radical changes when their current way of doing things becomes unsustainable.
So when the pain gets too great?
Yeah, often because new game-changing technologies have shifted the entire market around them.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because at that point, they're likely playing catch-up, aren't they?
Usually, yeah.
But how do they even begin to figure out if these big, radical solutions are worth the massive investment? Time, money, resources.
That's a huge stumbling block. Figuring out the real value of something truly new, especially a radical solution, it's inherently expensive and complicated. It requires a lot of research, deep analysis, often trying things out. Which can be really tough to justify when you're already under pressure from that tyranny of the urgent.
Right.
And this directly ties into why you, our listener, might want to quickly understand new areas. Efficiently assessing value is absolutely key.
Okay, so AssetSync Pro is stepping into this challenging environment with a core idea. What's their proposed way to break through this innovation bottleneck?
The central idea behind AssetSync Pro seems to be what they call intelligent collaboration. It's positioned as a smart platform that helps large businesses work together more effectively. The goal is to reduce the cost of bringing in new digital technologies, especially during that often failure-prone implementation phase.
Intelligent collaboration. That sounds like more than just your average project management software, right? What makes it intelligent?
Well, the intelligence comes from the built-in artificial intelligence, the AI. But it's not just about AI helping out in the background, like an assistant. AssetSync Pro envisions AI as actively participating in the everyday conversations and interactions between all the different people involved in a project, the stakeholders.
AI as a participant, that's a different way of thinking about it. So instead of just flagging a task that's overdue, it's actually involved in the discussion somehow.
That's the core concept, yeah. And a key part of this is what they call a shared workspace within AssetSync Pro. Think of it like a central digital hub, a place where everyone working on a project can connect, share information, collaborate, all the way from the big strategic goals down to the nitty-gritty details of daily decisions.
And what makes this shared workspace more than just, a shared folder on the internet? What's the secret sauce?
The secret sauce, I guess, is at the heart of this shared workspace. It's what AssetSync Pro calls the enterprise model.
The enterprise model.
Imagine it as a kind of digital brain for the company. It holds all the knowledge, all the insights the business has gained over time in its specific industry.
Right.
It's the kind of knowledge that ideally gets passed on from one project to the next, but, often gets lost or isn't used effectively in traditional ways of working.
So it gets stuck in silos or people leave.
Exactly. The key insight here is that instead of static documents sitting somewhere, you have a living, interconnected body of knowledge, something that learns and evolves with every project. That fundamentally changes how institutional memory is managed and, more importantly, leveraged.
So it's like the company's collective wisdom, but in a structured digital form. How does AssetSync Pro actually create and maintain this enterprise model? That sounds like a huge undertaking in itself.
Yeah, traditionally, building and keeping an enterprise model like this up to date is a big job. Takes a lot of time, a lot of money.
Right.
Usually relies heavily on experts like enterprise architects, business analysts.
Yeah.
They spend a lot of time on, frankly, repetitive tasks and basic documentation.
Okay.
AssetSync Pro aims to automate a lot of this initial repetitive work. Think of it as freeing up those experts from the more routine stuff so they can focus on the higher level strategic thinking, the really valuable work.
Okay, that makes sense. Automating the groundwork so the experts can focus on the big picture. So how do this shared workspace and this enterprise model actually lead to lower costs for companies adopting new technologies? What's the connection?
Well, the shared workspace acts like a value chain enabler. That's the term they use. It does this by providing real-time data on important things like how productive people are, how efficiently they're working, how well they're collaborating.
So actual metrics on collaboration.
Yeah. The platform then uses this data, along with smart prediction tools, algorithms, to help leaders make better decisions. For example, it can give more accurate estimates for how long a project will take, suggest changes to deadlines if things are slipping, and even point out specific tasks or work items that might be in danger of falling behind schedule.
So the key insight there is it's not just tracking tasks like a checklist, it's actively analyzing the workflow and predicting potential problems before they happen.
Exactly. It's proactive. Furthermore, AssetSync Pro encourages what they call an accountability-based collaboration environment.
Okay, what does that mean?
This is where the AI participation really comes into play. The platform looks at how people are interacting. It analyzes the metadata around their communications, importantly, without actually reading their messages.
Privacy. Good.
Right. To get a sense of how responsive and focused they are. This is based on an idea called SpeechX, which, in simple terms, looks at the underlying action or intent behind what we say.
Okay, so it's measuring the effectiveness of communication by looking at the actions being taken through language, not just counting messages.
Precisely.
SpeechX. That sounds a bit academic. Can you give us a quick, everyday example of what that means in this context?
Sure. Think of it this way. If someone sends a message saying, "Can you send me the report by Friday?" That's not just a statement, right? It's a request for action.
Right. You want something done.
Exactly. SpeechX theory recognizes these underlying actions in communication. AssetSync Pro analyzes these action-oriented parts of communication, the requests, the promises, the commitments, to understand how work is actually flowing and where there might be bottlenecks or delays.
Interesting. So it's measuring the effectiveness of communication, the action in communication, not just the volume.
Right, not just noise.
And how is all this cost-saving information presented to the people who need to see it? Is it buried in complex reports?
No, the platform shows these cost-related metrics through simple, easy-to-understand dashboards.
Oh.
Think of charts and summaries specifically designed to show each person the information that's most relevant to their role and the decisions they need to make. And importantly, our sources emphasize that it's designed to be easy to use. A minimal learning curve is the goal.
That's crucial.
for most people to access and understand these dashboards without needing extensive training.
Yeah, if it's too complicated, no one will bother using it, no matter how smart it is. Now, we've talked about how AssetSync Pro helps lower the cost of actually implementing new technology. But what about that initial hurdle? Deciding if a new technology is worth the investment in the first place. How does AssetSync Pro help reduce the cost of making that initial assessment?
That's another key area they seem to be targeting. Our sources recognize that figuring out if a new technology is valuable is often really expensive in itself. AssetSync Pro addresses this in a couple of smart ways.
Yeah.
First, they offer what they call a ready-made project.
Okay.
It's essentially a pre-built example, like a template, of a full-scale enterprise project that was created using AssetSync Pro itself.
So like a sandbox environment.
Kind of, yeah. A demo environment where potential customers can get hands-on experience and see how it works in a realistic scenario, not just a slideshow.
So it's like a test drive for a massive enterprise system change.
Exactly. Second, the platform provides live comparisons, what they call with and without metrics.
Ooh, interesting.
This allows organizations to see in a really tangible way the potential impact of using AssetSync Pro compared to their current way of doing things. So the key insight here is that it provides a data-driven way to visualize the potential return on investment before committing fully.
That sounds like a really powerful way to see the potential benefits, not just guess at them. And what about the initial analysis work? Our sources mention business analysts and enterprise architects doing a lot of that upfront work. How did AssetSync Pro fit into that?
This is where that AI participation really shines again. AssetSync Pro's AI takes on a lot of the initial analysis tasks that typically fall to those BAs and EAs.
Like what?
This includes handling routine documentation, helping to structure information, building out that initial framework of the enterprise model we discussed. But the important thing to remember, and this sources stress this, is that it's not about replacing these experts. It's about them working together with the AI. The phrase used is cooperating and collaborating with artificial intelligence to make the whole process more efficient. The human experts still provide the crucial guidance, the domain knowledge, the oversight.
So it's not replacing the experts, but giving them superpowers, maybe, by automating some of the more time-consuming, frankly, boring tasks.
That's a good way to put it, freeing them up for more strategic thinking.
Now, the journey from a promising new strategy to a fully working system, that can be really risky, right? Things get lost in translation.
Absolutely.
How does AssetSync Pro aim to reduce those risks, particularly in that early phase?
Yeah, our sources specifically point to that maybe 9 to 15 month period between defining a strategy and actually implementing it. That time is often filled with uncertainty, ambiguity, miscommunication.
Right.
AssetSync Pro aims to lower the risk in this phase by acting as a kind of digital twin of the collaborative environment itself.
A digital twin. Okay, we've heard that term before, often in a very technical, like manufacturing context. What does it mean here in plain language?
Right. It's not necessarily a visual 3D model of the system itself in this context. Instead, think of this digital twin as a way to measure the health of how everyone is working together during that crucial initial phase.
The health of collaboration.
Yeah. It provides data on things like how well people are communicating, how focused they seem to be based on interaction patterns, and how productive the overall collaboration is looking.
Yeah.
So the key insight here is that it's like getting an early warning system
Okay.
for potential communication breakdowns or maybe a lack of engagement before it derails the project.
So it's providing early warnings about potential communication breakdowns or lack of engagement. That could be huge.
Exactly. And the AI plays a vital role here, too, in helping the business side and the technology side of a company understand each other better.
Bridging that gap.
Reducing misunderstandings, reducing that inevitable loss of information or meaning that can happen when different teams speak different professional languages. The platform is also apparently designed with a sensitivity towards stakeholder accountability, meaning the idea is to provide insights without directly pointing fingers at individuals who might be falling behind.
That's important for building trust, right? A collaborative atmosphere where people feel supported and not blamed.
Absolutely critical.
Now, our sources mentioned enterprise asset management, or EAM, as an initial focus area for AssetSync Pro. Why EAM in particular? What's special about that?
The sources highlight that when collaboration doesn't work well in EAM initiatives, it often leads to two really costly problems.
Okay, what are they?
First, it's really hard to explain how technology choices actually deliver business value. Technical teams might struggle to communicate costs, benefits, strategies in a way that makes sense to managers and business leaders.
Right.
And the reverse is also true. Business leaders might miss opportunities because they don't fully grasp the technical possibilities or implications. So the key insight is that it tries to bridge that gap between the business and technology perspectives.
That sounds like a classic business tech disconnect. It happens everywhere.
Huh.
What's the second costly outcome of poor collaboration in EAM?
The second is a lack of line of sight.
Line of sight?
Yeah, this means it's difficult, often impossible, to see how the detailed work being done at the lower levels of the organization, say by engineers or technicians, directly contributes to the big strategic goals set by leadership.
Oh, okay.
Traditional systems often suffer from what one source called line of blindness. So the key insight here is that AssetSync Pro aims to help everyone see how their individual contributions fit into the overall strategic objectives, connecting the dots.
So you have all these different parts moving maybe efficiently on their own, but it's hard to see how they all connect back to the main purpose. Makes sense. How does AssetSync Pro's model-based approach address these collaboration challenges, specifically in EAM?
Well, the model-based approach offers a significant advantage over the traditional way of sharing information in enterprise architecture.
Which is usually
Relies on documents, spreadsheets, presentations, things that quickly become outdated, inconsistent, hard to find.
Tell me about it.
Right. Instead, this model-based approach uses a common, structured way of describing things, assets, processes, requirements, and technologies that can automatically generate different kinds of documents tailored to specific audiences from that central model.
Generated docs.
Yeah. This also allows for something called traceability.
Traceability. Okay.
It's the ability to link different pieces of information together and see how they relate. So if a requirement changes, you can see what designs, what tests, what strategic goals are impacted.
Traceability sounds incredibly useful, especially for understanding the ripple effects of changes. Our sources also mention viewpoints and dashboards. How do those fit into this model-based environment?
Think of viewpoints as customized lenses. Different stakeholders can look at the same underlying enterprise model through different viewpoints tailored to them.
Okay.
They're designed to show the information that's most relevant to their specific roles and concerns. A financial view, a technical view, a strategic view.
Right.
These viewpoints are then presented as dashboards, providing the right information to the right people in a format that makes sense to them, whether they're in business, management, or a technical role. So the key insight is everyone gets the information they need, tailored to their perspective from the same underlying truth.
So everyone sees the information they need in a language they understand, pulled from a single source. That's a big step up from generic reports, or everyone having their own slightly different spreadsheet.
Definitely. But, our sources also pointed out that even with existing collaboration tools, Teams, Slack, whatever,
yeah, we still see problems, like people not being properly motivated or incentivized to collaborate effectively, or still relying on old-fashioned manual ways of sharing stuff, like emailing documents around.
Right. The tools are there, but the behavior doesn't always change. How does AssetSync Pro tackle these more fundamental human issues?
Well, the claim is that AssetSync Pro is built from the ground up as a model-driven platform specifically to address these long-standing collaboration problems. It aims to reduce the manual effort involved in sharing and collaborating, and also to improve accountability.
How?
Traditional systems, as we said, often rely on information that's disconnected, static, quickly becomes old, isn't always easy to find or trust.
Right, those shared drives where documents go to die. So what's the alternative with AssetSync Pro?
AssetSync Pro enables what they call an always live view of the information that's relevant to each person, and it claims to do this with very little ongoing manual effort to keep it updated.
How is that possible? This is apparently made possible by the graph technology working behind the scenes. This graph keeps all the information interconnected and tracks changes in real time.
Graph databases maybe?
Could be. It ensures that everyone is always looking at the most current and accurate picture, reflecting the latest changes automatically. So the key insight is it provides up-to-date information automatically, reducing the reliance on manual sharing and digging for the latest version of some document.
And model-driven development, that's another term that came up. How does that enhance collaboration within AssetSync Pro? Is that different from the model-based approach?
It builds on it.
Yeah.
Model-driven development takes that enterprise model we've been talking about and makes it more than just a place to store information, more than just a reference.
Okay.
It allows the model to actively contribute to how the platform works. This means the model can be used to automatically generate documents, as we said, but also reports, dashboards, maybe even parts of the application's user interface or workflow logic itself. So a key insight here is the model becomes an active participant in the system's execution, not just a passive repository of data.
Okay, we've talked a lot about automation and efficiency, which sounds great, but our sources also emphasize the strategic use of AI in AssetSync Pro, saying it goes beyond just automating existing ways of working. What does that strategic use actually look like? How is it different?
Right, the strategic use of AI in AssetSync Pro seems focused on making collaboration itself a truly well-informed and highly effective process, not just, say, making old, inefficient email processes run faster with AI suggestions.
Okay.
Our sources highlight that when people collaborate, it's absolutely crucial that they share a common understanding. The term used was the sharing of meanings.
Sharing of meaning.
Yeah. This is often overlooked when the focus is just on the technical aspects of sharing content.
Right.
You're just passing files back and forth, checking permissions.
Right. Sharing a file doesn't mean you share understanding.
Exactly. AssetSync Pro aims to make this sharing of meanings easier, which should lead to better alignment between the business goals and how technology is actually implemented to achieve them. This means everyone involved, ideally, has a clear understanding of not just what needs to be done, but why it's important and how it fits together. So the key insight is it focuses on building shared understanding, shared context, not just sharing information artifacts.
Can we look at some real-world examples of how AssetSync Pro might be applied to enterprise asset management to make this more tangible, like day-to-day?
Absolutely. So in EAM projects, AssetSync Pro apparently helps to align the overall business strategy, the detailed plans, the specific requirements, any relevant industry standards like ISO 55000, and the day-to-day realities of operations.
Right.
That line of sight mechanism we mentioned earlier comes into play here. It connects the detailed tasks being performed at lower levels, maybe maintenance schedules, work orders, directly to the overarching strategic goals of the organization, like improving asset reliability or reducing maintenance costs.
So you can actually trace how a specific maintenance task on a piece of equipment contributes to a larger strategic objective of, say, improving overall equipment effectiveness, OEE.
Precisely. That's the goal. The process involves bringing all these elements, the strategy docs, the project plans, the technical requirements, the industry standards, into that shared digital workspace as a unified model, not just as separate files.
Right, as connected data.
Exactly. This makes it easy to compare different elements, cross-reference them, which is crucial for understanding the potential impact of changes and identifying any gaps or inconsistencies early on. The platform even apparently allows for simulating processes based on the model, and in some cases, virtually interacting with digital representations of physical equipment.
Simulating processes and interacting with equipment models, that sounds incredibly valuable for identifying potential problems before they cause real disruptions or safety issues.
Yeah, potentially very powerful for planning and risk assessment. One key differentiator they mentioned is the digital twin of the collaborative environment itself.
Okay, we talked about that.
Right. This provides those real-time insights into how well people are working together and helps ensure that technology decisions are always aligned with the overall business strategy. It essentially brings the business perspective, the management view, and the technology details together in one accessible live place.
So it's not just about managing the physical assets, but managing the entire process of managing those assets, including how people collaborate around it. What's another key feature that sets it apart?
Another is the ability to significantly accelerate strategy to implementation.
Okay.
Using that model-based technology we discussed. This minimizes the effort needed to keep strategic content up to date because it's live in the model and can even automatically generate the detailed plans and configuration specifications needed to implement specific EAM systems, like IBM's Maximo was mentioned as an example.
Automatically generating implementation plans and configurations, that could save a huge amount of time and potential errors.
That's the promise, yeah. Huge potential for efficiency gains there.
Now, the AI interviewer was another interesting concept mentioned. How does that work in the context of developing a business strategy? It sounds kind of futuristic.
It does, yeah. The AI interviewer is described as a smart tool within AssetSync Pro that uses its knowledge of industry standards, like ISO 55000 for asset management,
right,
to guide stakeholders through the process of creating a digital model of their asset management strategy. Think of it as having an AI consultant embedded in the platform. It asks the right questions, helps gather the necessary information, structures it according to best practices, basically helps build a solid strategic framework within the platform's model. This reduces the need to, reinvent the wheel or start from a blank page for every project.
So it's like having an AI expert walk you through the process of defining your asset management strategy, making sure you cover the key bases.
Exactly. That's the idea. And this feeds directly into the EAM enterprise model we've been discussing. Can we unpack that model a bit more? What exactly is it, and why is it considered so important in their approach?
Right. The EAM enterprise model is essentially that live, high-level, executive or management-level panorama of the entire asset management landscape within a company.
Okay.
It's accessible through those customized dashboards we talked about. Its function is to capture the overall asset strategy and create clear navigation paths that connect those high-level goals with the detailed operational activities and data.
Connecting strategy to execution again. Exactly. It's positioned as the foundation for making sure everyone is accountable right from the start, and for quickly understanding the impact of any changes, like what happens if we change the strategic objective? What operational areas are affected? So the key insight, again, is that instead of static silo documents, you have this dynamic, interconnected model that everyone can see and understand from their own perspective, always up to date.
So instead of passing around version 17B of a strategy document, you have a living model.
Oh.
That sounds like a real game changer for those early critical conversations among executives and managers.
It truly could be. It's designed to facilitate those crucial early discussions, help define the right criteria for choosing the best EAM system or technology for the organization's specific needs. Plus, because it's a digital model, it can automatically generate important documents from the model. Things like strategy reports, balanced scorecards, even the detailed request for proposals, RFPs, used to select software vendors or implementation partners.
Generating RFPs. Wow. And the alignment coordinator, what role does that play in all of this coordination?
The alignment coordinator seems to be a specific capability or function within AssetSync Pro. It focuses on making sure everyone's actions are actually in sync with the plan.
Okay.
It helps orchestrate activities across different teams or stakeholders, and crucially, provides live gap analysis on those stakeholder dashboards showing where the plan strategy might be diverging from what's actually happening on the ground.
So it's like having a built-in system to constantly check and ensure that everyone is rowing in the same direction towards the same goals.
That seems to be the idea, yeah. Continuous alignment monitoring.
Okay, we've covered a lot of features and capabilities. Let's maybe change gears slightly and talk about the thinking behind the product. What are the main principles guiding how AssetSync Pro is designed and developed? What's the product philosophy?
The product philosophy centers around three core qualitative dimensions.
Okay, what are they?
First, it needs to be intuitive and simple for everyone to use, regardless of their technical skills. That came up before.
Right, usability.
Second, it should positively impact how people already work, offering easier, better ways to do things compared to traditional methods, not just adding another complex tool. And third, it should aim to, quote, delight the stakeholder with dashboards that are tightly focused and meaningful, providing exactly the information they need, no more, no less, to make good decisions.
Intuitiveness and simplicity sound really important for getting people to actually adopt and use a new system like this. How do they measure that or think about it?
Intuitiveness is apparently measured by thinking about the cost of adoption. It's easy for people to start using the system.
Yeah.
And the cost of adaptation, how much do they need to change their existing work habits or learn new concepts? The goal is to make the platform feel natural and familiar. A key part of this is using the professional language that people in different roles already understand, so they don't feel like they need to become experts in model-based systems engineering or whatever the underlying tech is. Speak their language.
And delighting the stakeholder, that's about more than just being functional, right? It's an interesting choice of word.
Exactly. It suggests an ambition beyond just utility. It's about creating an experience that's not just useful, but also simple, perhaps visually appealing, maybe even enjoyable to interact with. The aim seems to be making their work life easier and providing clarity without unnecessary friction or hassle.
Our sources also mention the use of BPMN business process model and notation as a standard way to describe business processes within the system. Why is using a standard like BPMN important here?
Using a standard like BPMN provides a common and well-understood graphical language for modeling how business processes work within AssetSync Pro. Most business analysts would be familiar with it.
Right, it's not some proprietary format.
Exactly. It also has built-in semantics for things like tracking and auditing those processes. Importantly, BPMN allows you to connect activities directly to the people, roles, and resources involved.
Okay.
And this connection enables the platform to generate meaningful reports on those stakeholder dashboards, like workload, cycle times, resource utilization, tied back to the process model. So the key insight is that using this standard provides a rigorous way to describe, track, and analyze work.
So the underlying modeling language itself contributes directly to the platform's intelligence and reporting capabilities. Now, this next concept sounded a bit philosophical, moving from Cartesian to ontological descriptions. Can you explain that in simpler terms? What's the difference?
Yeah, it does sound a bit abstract. Traditionally, many enterprise systems take what could be called a Cartesian view. They focus on describing things as distinct objects or nouns like plan, asset, requirement, user.
Listing the parts.
Basically, yeah. AssetSync Pro claims to take a different approach, using an ontological framework. This shifts the focus more towards verbs and meanings, the actions, the decisions, the objectives, the concerns, the resolutions, the relationships within the business.
So how things connect and interact.
Exactly. Think of it as focusing on how things work and relate to each other dynamically, rather than just listing what exists statically. The argument is that this focus on relationships and interactions is what allows for a more accurate and meaningful digital twin, because it captures the dynamics, not just the components.
So it's not just describing what the pieces are, but how they actually interact and what those interactions mean for the business. And this leads to the ontology of alignment. What is that, and why does it matter for collaboration?
The ontology of alignment essentially provides a formal definition of what it truly means for different parts of a business, like strategy and operations or business and IT, to be in sync, to be aligned. It provides the underlying conceptual framework for how AssetSync Pro tries to achieve and measure this alignment. It emphasizes that a truly collaborative environment needs to be built on these fundamental principles of shared meaning and coordinated action, not just by adding, say, a chat feature onto existing technical tools.
Right. Collaboration is deeper than just features.
Precisely. Alignment in this sense is defined as the correspondence between the map, the business strategy, the plans, and the territory, the actual day-to-day operations, the reality on the ground.
Making sure the map matches the territory.
Exactly. AssetSync Pro, using this ontology, aims to help ensure that important operational issues or insights are filtered up effectively to senior leaders, and conversely, that the overall strategic objectives effectively guide the work being done at all levels, closing that loop.
That makes perfect sense, ensuring that the plan and the actual work on the ground are truly connected and informing each other. Now, the strategy builder was described not just as a tool, but as an ontological entity. What does that mean in a practical sense? How does it behave?
Right. Think of the strategy builder as more than just a wizard or a template. It's positioned as a smart assistant within the shared workspace that uses AI to help you develop your business strategy. It acts almost like having an experienced strategy analyst embedded in the platform.
Okay.
Because it's ontological, it means it understands the meaning and relationships between concepts. It learns and builds that network of knowledge, the enterprise model we've been discussing, from the information you provide through conversation or documents. It also shifts the focus from thinking about generic users of a software system to specific stakeholders who have their own unique concerns, viewpoints, professional language. So the key insight is that it understands the context and meaning behind the information, tailored to different stakeholder perspectives.
So it's not just processing text strings, it's actually trying to understand the meaning and context from the perspective of different roles within the organization.
That's the ambition, yes. It moves away from what the sources call an administrative mindset, focused on just managing files, forms, folders, and instead centers on the actual strategic content and how different stakeholders understand their part of the business, their professional ontology.
Okay.
AssetSync Pro aims to provide an order of magnitude improvement in efficiency and effectiveness during the initial discovery and analysis phase of strategy development or system implementation.
That's a bold claim.
It is. It's about having a knowledgeable conversation with the system to build understanding and structure knowledge, not just shuffling documents around or filling out forms.
Yeah.
Exchanging knowledge versus just sharing information.
That shift from just managing files to focusing on the ongoing conversation and the evolution of the knowledge model sounds like a potentially fundamental improvement in how businesses can approach complex projects.
Right.
Now, let's dive a little deeper into the AI behind all of this. Our sources talked quite a bit about the EAM ontology and LLMs. How do those work together in AssetSync Pro? What's the relationship?
Okay, so Ontologies, as we touched on, provide that structured way for AI systems to understand knowledge in a specific domain. They define the concepts, the properties, the relationships. This enables the AI to reason, to check consistency, provide relevant answers.
The rule book for the domain.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
The structured knowledge graph.
Yeah.
Large language models, or LLMs, are these incredibly powerful AI systems that excel at understanding and generating human language, trained on vast amounts of text data.
Right, like GPT-4 or Claude.
Exactly. The challenge and the opportunity is making these generalist LLMs true experts in specific business or technical areas. And that's where ontologies come in by teaching the LLM structured ontology for a domain like EAM. While LLMs are great at working with vast amounts of general, extensional data, facts, ontologies give them the specific intentional knowledge, the rules, the structures, the relationships within that particular domain. So the key insight is that ontologies provide the structured knowledge backbone that makes LLMs much more effective and reliable as domain experts.
So LLMs know a lot of general stuff, but ontologies help them understand how those things specifically relate to each other within a particular industry or business function, making their output more relevant and accurate.
Precisely. AssetSync Pro's approach involves fine-tuning LLMs to understand those specific EAM relationships, provide reliable, validated insights, and crucially, use the specific vocabulary and language of the organization.
Okay.
They also use a technique called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. Think of RAG as a way to give the LLM access to the most up-to-date, relevant information for the company's own knowledge base, like the enterprise model, when generating a response.
So it's not just relying on its pre-trained knowledge.
Right. It keeps the LLM's responses fresh, grounded in the current context, and specific to the organization's situation.
And ontology learning. How does AssetSync Pro leverage that? Is the AI building the ontology itself?
Ontology learning is a field within AI focused on automatically discovering and structuring knowledge from text, potentially to help build or extend ontologies. It's still a developing area.
Okay.
While LLMs might not yet be able to build complex, perfect ontologies entirely from scratch automatically, they can be very helpful in assisting human experts with this process. AssetSync Pro seems to use this potential primarily through intelligent document processing, or IDP,
Yeah.
using AI, including LLMs and ontology concepts, to analyze existing documents, strategy papers, process manuals, requirements, specs to extract key information and relationships, helping clients bring their existing strategic knowledge into the platform and structure it effectively within the enterprise model. So the key insight is AI helps to automatically understand and organize the knowledge trapped in documents.
So the AI helps to understand and structure the information contained in often unstructured documents, laying the foundation for that rich enterprise model we've been discussing. That makes sense. Now, let's talk about the tangible results or outputs. Our sources mentioned intelligent capabilities leading to something called branded apps. What are those all about?
Branded apps represent a potentially new way of thinking about building and delivering enterprise software. They're described as adaptable applications that live in the cloud and can be developed very rapidly using that model-driven development approach powered by AI and the enterprise model.
Okay.
The big promise is significantly reducing the time and cost typically associated with building custom enterprise applications or configuring large, complex platforms. Think of it as creating specialized, context-aware tools much, much faster than traditional software development allows.
Rapidly adaptable sounds like a huge advantage in today's quickly changing business environment. How does this work in practice? How are they built so quickly?
AssetSync Pro is described as being built on a multi-layer technology stack. At the base is the enterprise model repository, holding all that structured knowledge.
Right.
Above that is the digital twin of engagement and performance, tracking how people are working together. Then you have AI acting as a knowledge broker, connecting different parts of the system, understanding intent. And finally, at the top are these high-value computing branded apps.
Okay, the apps sit on top.
Right. This layered, model-driven approach means you theoretically don't need to do as much traditional line-by-line programming. The focus is on defining the needs and processes in the model, leveraging AI and using conversations, and the platform helps generate or configure the resulting app. The philosophy is leveraging professional conversations to drive action and application generation.
So these branded apps aren't just generic off-the-shelf software. They're meant to be highly tailored to the specific needs, processes, and language of a particular industry or even a specific company, and built much faster.
That's the concept, yes. Faster time to value, more adaptable solutions. Our sources also touched on AI reinforcement learning briefly. How does that contribute to AssetSync Pro's abilities? Reinforcement learning, as you probably know, is a type of AI where the system learns by trial and error, trying actions, and getting feedback, rewards, or penalties for the outcomes.
Right. Learning from experience.
Exactly. In AssetSync Pro, this could be used, for example, to continuously improve how the AI interacts with users based on feedback, refine the accuracy of the enterprise model as new data comes in, or get better at assessing project risks and predicting outcomes over time based on observed patterns. So the key insight is the AI gets better and smarter the more the platform is used and the more feedback it receives.
And the idea of treating LLMs as stakeholders in strategy conversations, that's a really interesting design choice. What's the thinking behind that? Why treat AI as a stakeholder?
It's a fascinating concept. By treating the LLM as a participant, almost like another team member, the platform can leverage the LLM's ability to process and analyze vast amounts of information to actively contribute to the process itself, not just answer questions when asked.
How so?
This could involve the LLM proactively asking relevant questions based on the ontology, pointing out potential inconsistencies or gaps it detects in the strategy being discussed, maybe suggesting alternative approaches based on industry standards, or helping to summarize and refine the strategic content based on its understanding of the domain ontology.
So it's like having an always available, incredibly knowledgeable, and tireless participant in your strategic planning sessions.
Potentially, yes. That seems to be the vision. It's like having an AI strategy analyst in the room. Our sources also mention conversation analysis as influencing how interactions are designed within AssetSync Pro.
Yeah.
How does that play out? What does that bring? Conversation analysis is a field that studies the nitty-gritty of how people structure and make sense of conversations in real life, turn-taking, openings, closings, repairs, when things go wrong. By applying principles from this field, AssetSync Pro aims to make the AI interactions feel more natural, more focused, and ultimately more productive. Going beyond simple, rigid question-and-answer exchanges to mimic the more fluid, collaborative flow of real business discussions.
So it's not just about getting information out of the user. It's about creating a meaningful, structured back and forth that feels more like a real collaboration.
That appears to be the goal, yes. Designing for effective dialogue.
Now let's circle back to the overall value of the AssetSync Pro shared workspace. We've touched on many aspects, but what's the most important thing for you, our listener, to understand about it? The core value proposition.
I think the key takeaway is that this workspace is positioned as much more than just a place to store files or manage tasks. It's designed as a private, secure environment that becomes increasingly intelligent over time.
How does that intelligence grow?
It grows in two main stages, apparently. First, through the initial AI analysis of the documents you upload when setting things up, discovering existing strategies, assessing completeness based on standards.
Okay, the initial setup.
And then critically, it learns continuously from the ongoing interactions and conversations of everyone using the system, leveraging those speech acts, tracking progress, observing collaboration patterns. This leads to valuable capabilities like helping you discover gaps in your strategy, assess how effective your strategy execution is, and monitor how well projects are actually progressing towards their goals. It becomes a long-term strategic asset itself.
So it's not just a static repository. It actively learns and provides evolving insights as you use it. What about the specific AI technologies under the hood? Are they relying on one particular type of AI, one specific LLM?
AssetSync Pro seems to be taking a pragmatic, maybe even a best-of-breed approach. They recognize that different types of AI, different LLM families perhaps, are better suited for different tasks.
Makes sense.
The initial version apparently relies heavily on AI document analyzers for that upfront ingestion, with stated plans to integrate more specialized AI engines for reasoning, prediction, simulation, etc. in the future. They're also really focusing on understanding the action-oriented nature of language in business.
To speech acts again.
Exactly. Going beyond simple linguistic analysis of adjacency pairs, like question-answer, to analyze the underlying intent and commitment in communication using speech acts theory.
And grounding interactions in these speech acts seems like a really key, maybe unique element in creating that digital twin of collaboration we discussed earlier. It's about what people are doing with language.
That seems to be fundamental to their approach, yes. Our sources went into some detail about design, adjacency pairs in AI conversations, and then expanded on speech acts. What are the main points there in terms of how AssetSync Pro is actually built to interact? The design apparently incorporates key structural elements of natural conversation, how people start and end talks, take turns speaking, organize topics, provide feedback to ensure that the AI interactions are focused, coherent, and lead to accurate understanding. That idea of repair, how we naturally correct misunderstandings or errors in human conversation, is explicitly mentioned as a basis for how the AI learns and improves its interactions through reinforcement learning, getting feedback when it gets things wrong. And speech acts are crucial because they allow the platform to understand the intended action behind what people say, making a request, making a promise, declaring something complete. This makes natural language measurable and brings it into the world of computing in a meaningful, actionable way. So the key insight is it's designed to understand the intent behind communication, not just the literal words.
So it's not just about what you say, but what you intend to do with your words, making language actionable for the system. Now, when it comes to generating the enterprise model, what's the ultimate goal they're aiming for with that AI strategy builder?
The main objective stated is to generate an accurate and concise enterprise model from the company's strategy documents and stakeholder conversations, ideally with minimal manual editing or revision needed afterwards.
Ambitious.
Very. This is supposedly achieved through sophisticated algorithms that effectively teach the LLM the relevant ontology, the specific knowledge, concepts, and semantic relationships within the business domain, like EAM. The aim is to have complete conversations with the AI.
Complete conversations.
Meaning conversations that reach a satisfactory outcome, producing a model that accurately reflects the strategy and is consistent with the goals of the stakeholders involved. This likely leverages features like chat completions found in modern LLMs, designed for multi-turn, coherent dialogue.
And how does AssetSync Pro approach visualizing business content with graphs? We know architects love complex diagrams, but business users, that sounds important for making this complex information understandable and actually useful day to day.
That's a key challenge they acknowledge. While architects often think and communicate using detailed, sometimes complex models like UML or Archimate,
Right.
business users typically communicate using natural language, simple spreadsheets, maybe basic charts. AssetSync Pro aims to bridge this gap. It takes the information it discovers and structures in the enterprise model and presents relevant parts of it as simple, often hierarchical graphs that are based on the defined ontology, like the EAM ontology.
Okay, simpler graphs.
The real challenge, they note, is making these graphs genuinely useful, important, and frankly worth the effort for business actors to learn and engage with. They focus on hierarchical representations because those are often intuitive, like org charts or work breakdown structures. The graph is also likely compartmentalized, so you only see the relevant slice. The efficiency gain comes from using the graph to navigate and understand relationships quickly instead of sifting through pages of documents.
Right.
They also mention rich hover-over functionality, providing context, definitions, and crucially, links back to the specific part of the source document where the information came from for traceability.
Traceability back to source. Important.
And interestingly, the graph isn't just static. It can also act as a visual indicator, a heat map, perhaps showing the level of collaboration activity, coordination status, communication intensity, or overall health related to different parts of the model or project. And it visually enables that line of sight from strategy to execution.
So it's a visual representation of the underlying knowledge and the activity and health around it. Now, the digital twin of engagement and performance, you mentioned this measures collaboration health. That goes beyond just tracking tasks and deadlines, right? How does it work?
Absolutely. It monitors interactions in real time to assess how engaged people are and how well the collaboration itself is performing, not just for later audits or blame. The platform uses built-in observations. Think of it like the system emulating a manager's watchful eye, but automatically and based on data.
Okay, observations.
It tracks communications and activities, likely interpreting them through the lens of speech acts and other interaction patterns defined in the enterprise model. This interaction data is fed to the AI, LLM, to learn patterns and make informed, grounded assessments about engagement and performance trends.
How is engagement defined or measured?
Engagement is described in terms of responsiveness and focus. Responsiveness might track the time it takes for stakeholders to respond to interactions, like requests or questions, perhaps weighted by urgency. Focus might look at the number of simultaneous interactions or tasks a person is juggling, potentially indicating overload or lack of focus.
Interesting. And what counts as an interaction?
Interactions could be explicit requests within the platform, assigned activities, status updates, maybe even relevant communications pulled from integrated tools like Teams or Discord, if connected. The platform attaches relevant enterprise model elements, like the strategic goal or project task, to these interactions for context.
And performance.
Performance measurement builds on engagement. It focuses on things like completion rate relative to deadlines and run rate as a projection of future progress. Completion might be approximated by the rate of change, rho over c, of relevant model elements, potentially refined by stakeholder input. Is this task really 80% done? Again, the emphasis is on overall trends in health, with sensitivity about individual metrics.
It's about providing insights into the overall health of the project and the collaboration, not creating a surveillance system. Finally, let's touch on branded apps one more time. What's the core promise there for businesses looking for agility?
The core promise of branded apps is the potential to significantly speed up the creation and deployment of custom, context-aware business applications. These are envisioned as adaptable, cloud-native apps tailored to specific industries or business needs, built quickly and cost-effectively using the model-driven, AI-assisted approach.
Okay.
It represents a move away from slow, traditional, monolithic enterprise software development cycles towards something more dynamic, providing real-time visibility and functionality that's directly driven by industry standards and the company's own evolving knowledge framework captured in the enterprise model.
That sounds like a really significant potential shift in how enterprise software could be built and deployed in the future. Now, our sources included an Appendix A, the philosophy behind the philosophy. A bit meta. What was the main idea being explored there? What are they pondering?
Yeah, Appendix A seemed to delve into the potential future impact of AI, questioning whether current paradigms for building enterprise software, even model-driven ones, will remain relevant in the face of more powerful generative AI. It raises the provocative idea that AI might eventually be able to go beyond just understanding and modeling business processes and needs to actually generating functional applications directly from the enterprise model and high-level user requirements.
Whoa.
Essentially asking the AI not just for the plan, but asking it to create the specific workflows, the user interfaces, maybe even the entire app needed to execute that plan. A much more direct generation capability.
So a future where AI plays an even more direct role in creating the very tools businesses use, almost on demand. Okay, let's try to summarize this complex topic for you, our learner. What are the key things they should take away from our deep dive into AssetSync Pro today?
Okay, for you, the learner, I think the core value proposition of AssetSync Pro, based on our sources, is its attempt to help large organizations overcome those big challenges in adopting complex new technologies, particularly by tackling the tyranny of the urgent.
Right.
It proposes doing this through intelligent collaboration, enabled by that central shared workspace and the rich, evolving enterprise model. The whole approach aims to lower the costs and risks associated with implementing complex systems like EAM. It focuses on enhancing collaboration using a model-based approach, leveraging AI for insights and automation, and looking ahead with the vision of branded apps. It hints at a future of much faster, more adaptable enterprise software development driven directly by business knowledge.
So the aha moment here, perhaps, is the potential to really understand and leverage complex enterprise technologies more quickly and thoroughly, getting the essential insights without getting completely lost in that sea of overwhelming information we started with.
Exactly. It's about trying to bring clarity, alignment, and maybe even speed to complex, high-stakes enterprise initiatives in a digital world that just keeps getting more complex.
And now for our final thought to ponder. Building on that provocative idea in Appendix A, imagine a future where you could simply describe a complex business problem or a strategic need to an AI, and it would not only outline the optimal process or solution, but could actually generate the tailored software application to implement it right then and there. How might that fundamentally change how businesses operate, how strategies are executed, and maybe how you, as someone trying to stay informed and effective, approach understanding and engaging with enterprise technology? That's definitely something to think about.
Indeed. A potential future where the line between specifying needs and having the capability blurs significantly. If this deep dive has sparked your interest, we definitely encourage you to consider the potential implications of these kinds of advancements and how they might shape your own journey of learning about and interacting with complex technologies in the future.